Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the RDH Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Chad. Joined alongside me is my brother, Tanner. How's it hanging, dude?
It's a good Tuesday afternoon here in Texas because the Cowboys beat the Philadelphia Eagles on Sunday Night Football, and they didn't just beat them. They destroyed them. And I mean, it wasn't really close. I mean, you can say that we'll get into it later, but it was a fun experience. It was a fun experience. I always love seeing the Cowboys on Sunday night. Always love it when they win on Sunday night. And yeah, I'm ready to talk some football because a lot has happened recently, and I'm ready to
A
get into
lot.
it.
A lot has happened recently, and clearly both of us are stoked to get into some football. But RDH Sports, we talk football. Right now, we're talking college football. We're going to recap a little bit of Week 14, and then we got a lot of picks to make for the bettors in the episode for Week 15. We got Saturday games, Thursday games, Sunday games, and Monday games. NFL is now coming out with the playoff schedule, so get ready for it because football is on 4 times a week this coming up week. But like Tanner said, we're ready to get into it. We're going to jump into Dallas Cowboys in just a second. We can't not shout out, college football. We got it. We got a Heisman Trophy winner. We got another Heisman Trophy winner from LSU, another quarterback from LSU that won, Jaden Daniels. I got to pull up his stats real quick compared to Joe Burrow's season from Bleacher Report. And this is insane. So in Joe Burrow's 2019 season and Jaden Daniels' 2023 season, 4,946 passing yards for Jaden Daniels, 50 total touchdowns with a 72.2% completion percentage. Solid.
Pretty
You know what I
good.
mean? That's solid. Joe Burrow, 4,614 yards passing, 47 total TDs, but get ready for this. I forgot about this. 78.3% completion percentage for Joe Burrow.
That's crazy.
So Jaden Daniels wins in yards and total touchdowns against Joe Burrow and takes the Heisman Trophy home for LSU. To be honest, I kind of knew that one was coming. You know what I mean? Didn't really hit it too much on the pod last week because, yes, you could have given it to potentially Washington, Penny Jr., but I can't. Bo Nix is just not there. You know what I mean? He's kind of fallen off recently over the past couple of weeks. So it's like, to me, it was Jaden Daniels all the way. What did you think about it? You think he was deserving? You know what I mean? Another quarterback?
Yeah, of course, I think it was deserving. I mean, it's just when you put up numbers like that, and another thing too about his games, he's a dual threat quarterback too. He has the ability to run, and he showed a lot of that at LSU. And he just put up big games in games that weren't big. You know what I mean? That's kind of why I think he got the nod. Why I think everyone was like, "Dang, look at what this kid is doing." Because he's making this LSU team kind of by himself. They didn't really have a lot of big success in the season. Like, people weren't really talking about LSU towards the end of the season. And, he won the Heisman. He did his job, and he excelled at it. So I think that's why he got it. And the Heisman Award is not just, like, the best team, the best quarterback on the best team award. It's, it's the best quarterback in the nation. It's the person who's going out there week in and week out and just putting up the most numbers, putting up the biggest numbers and, like, the flashiest stats. So I love it a lot. I think it's very deserving. LSU, they just know how to make them. I don't know if anything's ever going to beat that Joe Burrow season for me. If Jaden Daniels were in the playoffs, he could have a shot at it, but he's not. So it's going to be fun. I'm curious to see where he goes in the NFL and stuff like that. So, but we're gonna get into that later in the season, the end of the year. So I will save that to you, Mister Draft Guru over here.
That's the name of the game for me. If you don't listen to the podcast, it's RDH Sports. Talk a lot of football. During the regular season is NFL, college football. We're gonna hit, the college football playoffs here in a little bit. Not necessarily a lot of the bowl games, but just like Tanner alluded to, huge college football guy. I release on our website rdhsports.net every year power rankings. We go through so much in the off season because hey, there's months where there's actually not football. And the fans
There's a
really
lot
like
of
to
them.
get into a lot of them, and the fans like to get into a lot of the college football stuff. And I've been watching these guys for a long time, and I can't wait. I'm going to bring back the college football prospect spotlight here in a couple episodes. It's going to be so much college football in the offseason. Just going to kind of keep pushing it, but just going to let you know, wow, we got some prospects to talk about. But now jumping to the NFL, Week 14 recap. Tanner said it earlier. Before we go into the Dallas Cowboys, we're going to hit some other points because Tanner and I tend to ramble on the Dallas Cowboys. As you can see behind him, got the Romo there. Tanner and I have gone to, I, I don't know how many
There's another one
Cowboy
over here.
games.
There's another one. Hold on, I'll move the mic. You can kind of see it.
There we go. There you go.
You can see the boys
There you
over
go.
there.
You can see it.
That's
If
the
you're
2004 roster right there. Pretty nice.
if you're watching on the tube, you can see the background of Tanner stuff. The game room,
Vinny
we will
Testaverde,
record.
Keyshawn Johnson, pretty good.
There you go. When I come back, we're gonna both be recording. And I come back to Tejas, so I'm excited to do that. Recording the game room like we did last time, the ultimate cowboy man cave. Anyway, jump into the Browns. We got to jump to the Browns because Tanner's the Browns guy. I know I got the Brown hoodie on, but Tanner is the Browns guy. He's a big fan, and all I got to say is one thing, and then I'm gonna let you take it away. Joe Gunsling and Flacco, go ahead.
January Joe Flacco. I love him. It is like a breath of fresh air when you look at this offense as compared to how it's been the rest of the season. I saw a stat that was like, not many teams that have had 4 starting quarterbacks during the regular season have been this successful as the Cleveland Browns have. I mean, much less even have control their destiny to make a playoff spot and have a good winning record. You know what I mean? So this is awesome. It just shows you really how good the team is in every avenue. And I got some stats. I'm back with the stats for this week. I think a really interesting one that I was kind of thinking about earlier today is the Browns have had a passer throwing for at least 250 yards in the past 2 games, being the games that Joe Flacco has played in, started, and completed all the way through. So in the previous weeks leading up to this, they have only had one person throw for over 250 yards, and that was Deshaun Watson back in week 3. So they have not had a 250-yard passer since the 3rd week of the season against the Tennessee Titans. There was one in there. They played the Seattle Seahawks. They got close with 248, but not that type of success. And for the first time all season, the Browns threw for 300 yards, or at least Joe Flacco did, and he threw for 3 tugs. So needless to say, I think it's working. I think the Joe Flacco experiment is doing pretty well. And like I said, it's almost like the best passing offense I've seen all season. I've been griping on them to kind of just, lean into the rush and help your passing game. But they went out and they got the biggest gunslinger I could think of in Joe Flacco, and it's working out. It gives me confidence that this team can actually make a run in the playoffs. Not, before where it's just like, the offense can't stand on its own. They're putting some points a game. They beat the Jacksonville Jaguars this past weekend, who are not a bad football team, even though Trevor Lawrence, was on one leg. Unfortunately, though, they did lose some tackles to injury. They were already gone for the season, or they were already on the injured reserve list, but now they're gone for the season. You have DeJuan Jones, the guy out of Ohio State. He's a right tackle, and he's been playing really well in the absence of Jack Conklin. But that, as well as Jedrick Wills, who's not as big as a loss, but he's officially out for the season too. So a bunch more injury news for the Cleveland Browns, and they're just still chugging. They're continuing to chug. They got the replacements in. Jaron Christian starting at left tackle. Past 2 games, and he's looked really good. I'm excited for him. It's just Cleveland is a next man up mentality, and you're seeing it at every single position, man. It doesn't matter. Denzel Ward goes out, Greg Newsome steps up, Martin Emerson steps up. They get picks, they get interceptions, and they play well. Same thing with the offensive line, same thing with quarterbacks, same thing with running backs, man. It's just what this team is. They're a fighting football team. They're going to finish, and god dang, it's fun to be a Cleveland Browns fan. Like, they're looking good. The defense is good. The offense is finally starting to kick into gear, and they have one of the easiest schedules to finish out the season, man. I wouldn't say that. I don't know if you want to get into it, but I say that they have a very, very good chance to end the season as the 5 seed, to potentially make a run for the division, because Baltimore has a very tough schedule remaining. They still have to play Miami and the Niners, and that's 2 games. They're 2 games behind. Cleveland is with Baltimore. They play the Steelers too, and I think they play Jacksonville. So it's not looking easy for the Ravens, and it's looking real easy for the Browns. The toughest team they got to play is the Texans left, and I think they play the Bengals, in there as well. So I don't know, man. I'm getting excited. It's been a little while since I saw Cleveland in the playoffs, and the last time they were in the playoffs, um, I had a little. It was bad taste left in my mouth after that Kansas City game, if you remember that one. But my rant is over. Cleveland Browns, they look good. They're playing well, and if they continue like this, if Joe Flacco continues to do what he's doing, I think they make the playoffs easy. I think they make at least the 5 seed easy, and hey, you never know. They can get an upset and maybe even win the division.
We'll see what happens. The Ravens would, like you said, have to drop a couple games. Those games are definitely droppable. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
They're definitely droppable for the Ravens. But right now, I'm not going to bet against Lamar, especially with this last week's performance was like arguably his best of the season. He's starting to look really good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Odell ran the wrong route, but he still got a touchdown. You know what I mean? You've got a lot of production going on the Ravens side, on the offensive side of the ball and the defensive side of the ball. On the Cleveland Browns, you have a ton of production on the defensive side of the ball first, and then it goes to the offense. But now it's kind of counterbalancing with Joe Flacco resurgence. My thing is I saw a stat earlier where, just like you said, averaging 250 passing yards, and before that it was under 200,
Yep.
and that doesn't sound like a lot, but it's like 183 or something around there. So when you're averaging that much more passing yards, you know what I mean? When you're averaging that many more passing yards, that's not only showing that your offense is better, but you're getting down the field more, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're not in those bad field position plays. And in Cleveland, I didn't think Joe Flacco had it in him, but hey, he does. And you personally said it. He gave you the best chance to win, and you've won a couple games with him. So let's see how the season ends out. My bet's on Baltimore, but Cleveland going into the 5 seed, I think Cleveland's a lock for the playoffs. I honestly think you can lock in Cleveland. I know it's going to take a couple more weeks for that scenario to actually happen, a couple more wins, but I think you could lock them in. Jumping to the injury updates of the week, this is not good, especially with fantasy owners entering the fantasy playoffs this week. Justin Herbert out for the season with a broken finger. He hasn't necessarily had the best season, but at the same time, if that's your starting quarterback, ouch. Tyreek Hill, ankle. I'm not sure if he's missing any time, but you never want an ankle going into fantasy playoffs, and/or Dolphins fans don't want to see that because of how much production that Tyreek Hill has gotten this season. And Justin Jefferson, I was watching the game, saw it happen. Comes back after missing multiple weeks and exits with a chest injury. Got hit really hard in the back. Didn't even look like he got hit in the chest, and then had to be taken to the local hospital. So Justin Jefferson is not looking, he's looking doubtful and/or out this upcoming week, is what I'm seeing. Justin Herbert's obviously out, and Tyreek Hill right now is probable, but that's a big loss for two of those teams. Tyreek Hill, we'll see what happens. The fact that Miami lost, they're in winning mode now, especially with that AFC race starting to tighten, with Buffalo starting to get hot now. So Chargers never really had a shot anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Miami, that's we'll see what's happening, if it's really week to week or if he kind of gets over it here in a couple weeks. And then Justin Jefferson, that's huge. But Minnesota, that's actually pretty big, especially because the Packers dropped one this past day as well. So playoff scenarios are everywhere, and that's what we're going to be talking about a ton coming up. We got some surprise of the week right now. The Jets and Zach Wilson this past week, they dominated the Texans 30-6. CJ Stroud exited with a concussion, and I mean, with the absence of Tank Dell, I didn't think it would be as prevalent as it was, but you saw how bad CJ struggled. I was going against him in fantasy in 2 leagues. Thank you, CJ, for not having that great of a week. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think it's also to credit of the Jets defense. We've been seeing them put up big numbers. We've been seeing them play well all season. And when you got Sauce Gardner on Nico Collins, it's probably not going to be a very successful day for the Texans. And CJ finally looks like a rookie for once in his life. He looked like that. I think the other bad game he had was against the Panthers, where they lost to them as well. But these things come and go. I really think he's going to be fine because of it. The Texans didn't, bless their heart with Tank Dell, but he's out for the season. That was a huge blow, and that was CJ's favorite target. He's a burner. He's an absolute demon on the field, and we saw it happen. Like I said with Nico Collins in the previous game, but going up against like bigger, better defenses in the future, I think it's going to be tough for CJ to replicate his success with that he had with Tank Dell in that one game with Nico Collins. But I think he'll be okay. I really do, especially since the Jets are kind of like I would say a very, very good defense, top, cream of the crop in the NFL. So he's just got to learn. He's just got to get better. He's got to adjust to those guys, and they picked on a young guy, and you see it happen a lot. But I think he'll be okay. I think he'll be all right for his injury. I don't know. I think playing wise, I think he'll be okay. But hopefully he's ready to suit up next week. Hopefully he's ready to go.
Yeah, you never want to see the head stuff, especially with concussions. Dealt with a lot myself playing hockey my whole life. Those are not fun because those, you can usually, yeah, you're good to go the next week, but you saw it last season, with the whole Tua thing. You never want to come back too early. The NFL is really smart about that, or the NFLPA is really smart about that. So I don't think he's going to come back too early. But yeah, if CJ Stroud's not at the helm, it's a no go. And the Texans right now are looking pretty good. Aside from this last week against the Jets. So we'll see what happens. Moving forward without their number one wide receiver. Next surprise of the week, the Bears destroyed the Lions. The score was only 28-13, but if you watch that game was not close at all. Detroit really, Jared Goff didn't necessarily have a bad game, but I saw Amon-Ra St. Brown at the end of that game drop about 4 balls, and he just didn't look right. And that's weird because I don't think I've ever seen that guy drop more than 1 or 2 in a game.
Mm-hmm.
And to drop almost 3 or 4 consecutively at the end of that game when they needed it with good balls being thrown was really, really odd to see. But the Detroit Lions, I mean, what's happening there? Because the last couple games have not looked good.
Defense, man, just defense, and funny enough, playing against your division, which sucks because that's the one the couple teams in the league that you want to play well against, and they're just not doing it. We saw it against the Packers on Thanksgiving. Packers went in there, destroyed them. Happened again with the Bears. They destroyed them. I think the defense is just kind of letting up a little bit too much. I get it. When it comes to with the Bears, they have a lot of explosiveness, especially with Justin Fields being back, but they also have a lot of explosiveness like in the wrong direction too. Like they like to throw turnovers, they like to get the ball in awkward places. I think the Lions had a great chance to create turnovers, make Justin Fields uncomfortable and force turnovers, but they just didn't. They just didn't get there. It's kind of weird. Hopefully they get it sorted out, but defense needs to be better. They got to pressure the quarterback more, and you just got to make Justin Fields awkward, and he didn't really look awkward at all that day. When you have a guy like DJ Moore, you kind of have to.
He's him.
He's him. You kind of have to make sure that he isn't him. You know what I mean? So they didn't do that. He kind of broke out, and that was kind of the name of the game.
Destroyed him.
It was just the name of the game, along with their pretty decent running game and Justin Fields' ability to, scramble out of the pocket and get positive yards in the rushing game and stuff like that. It's a recipe for success for the Bears and not a good one for the Lions. We've been seeing that they are hesitant. When they're down in the game, they're down. Against like the Ravens, they didn't look good. Against the Packers, they didn't look good. When they face a really, really good team who's putting up a lot of points offensively, it doesn't look like they like to respond the same way offensively. You're starting to see that a little bit with with the Lions. I don't know, man. It's kind of scary, especially at this part in the season, to drop games like that with the playoffs coming up so soon. I'm not so sure about it anymore. I love the offense. I love the Lions, but they need to fix up some things. They need to get back to that, I don't know, that pound and ground thing, running game, just absolutely destroy teams and hold on to the ball for time of possession so that defense can have a little time to breathe.
And right now, this is the point in the season where you get the good teams and you get the great teams, right? You start to get the teams that are not only going to make the playoffs, we're going to make a playoff push, right? In the NFC, you have the 49ers, the Dallas Cowboys, and the Philadelphia Eagles right now. Other than that, you really don't have anybody else. I understand the Eagles have lost 2 games, but their last 2 opponents were pretty damn tough. And Dallas at home this year is not lost. So, we're going to get into that here in a second, but you've got 3 really good teams in the NFC and the AFC. You've got Baltimore up there, and then there's a lot of space after that. right? You've got the Bills that are getting hot right now. You've got Kansas City as well. You had Jacksonville, but Jacksonville's starting to drop games now. So there's a huge open race in the AFC
Huge.
and the NFC as well right now. So there's a ton going on. And speaking of NFC, the Giants take down the Packers, which, with Minnesota beating the Raiders, 3-0, right?
Dude.
When they won 3-0, that was a huge game because they needed to win that game. And the Packers, before they lost this game, were sitting in a wild card spot. Now they're not, because the Giants beat them 24-22. Obviously, is this the Tommy DeVito effect? You know what I mean? You once again, another call by RDH Sports, specifically you talked about him on the podcast, either last pod or the pod ago. And I mean, this kid is not only electric, his agent, my God,
That's so funny.
If that's real, that is the sickest thing I've ever seen. That guy is the sickest guy I've ever. That's so cool. You know what I mean? And then his family, like the tailgate, everything that they're doing, I love it. You know what I mean? But I gotta ask, what do you see in this kid?
I
What do you see in it?
I I think he's good. I think he's confident. He's got a lot of talent. He's going out there and he's winning games in the NFL, and that's just something that is just really hard to do. As a third string quarterback, right? Because Daniel Jones was number one, right? Wasn't it Tyrod that was behind him, or was it Tyrod?
I do not know. I'm not gonna lie to you.
I don't remember. It was Tyrod or maybe it was Teddy Bridgewater. It was one of those two guys. But
I've checked out on Giants football. You know what I mean?
I agree
Sorry.
because it's the Tommy DeVito show, the passing paisano. I think he's won the heart of the city. I really do. Everyone's kind of rallying behind him now. It's going to be tough for Daniel Jones to come back and take that job again. But
That's my next question.
Yeah.
That's my next question. To answer it after you're done explaining this, what happens with Daniel Jones? Keep going.
He's making football exciting in Giants land. He's actually making these big time throws. He's making big plays with his legs. Not that Daniel Jones never did that, but he's just doing it, I guess, at a higher rate, more consistently. Daniel Jones is just like, whatever. We'll see what happens with the Giants moving forward. But, I mean, he kind of had his coming out game against Dallas, even though they whooped up on him. But he looked good in the games that he has played. It's hard to take him out. I think if he continues to do this through the season, if he has a good record, continues to go like this, if I'm the Giants, I'm trading Danny. I'm trading Danny Dimes. I'm putting him on the block in the offseason and be like, hey, someone come get him. We got our guy. Because Daniel Jones has had 4 seasons.
Who the hell's going to pay for Daniel Jones? He signed a mega contract this offseason. I mean, you
Someone
heard it
will.
on the podcast. Someone potentially, yeah, he's going to have to probably take a pay cut. But I don't know. To me, it's like, yes, I agree with you. You know what I mean? If he continues to win and ends this season with a positive record, that's definitely an argument. I don't know if they necessarily move on from him in the offseason, but if you want the biggest return, you have to do it this offseason. You know what I mean? Because the last thing you want is a quarterback controversy between those two guys, because you said it, he's already won the heart of New York, it seems like. You know what I mean? That watching that game and watching, New York specifically, it just you see the stadium filled up again and you're like, okay. You know what I mean? Earlier games in the season, and Saquon's looking good in New York. Saquon's running the ball 20 plus times a game. They stick to their game plan when Saquon's healthy. And here's my biggest thing with Tommy DeVito and even Daniel Jones. They haven't had anybody to throw the ball to.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The New York Giants are arguably one of the weakest in the NFL at the wide receiver position. And the fact that he's having these good games is pretty tremendous. And like you said, he's made football fun again in New York. So we'll see what happens moving forward. But that was a massive contract that the Giants signed to Daniel Jones.
It's tough because you just, why would you walk away from this guy who's just putting up not numbers, but just he's making football exciting for your team. He's winning games. He's doing things that Daniel Jones did not do. Daniel Jones had like one good season, right? I mean, we're Cowboys fans. We joke about it all the time. We want him to keep him. But as a business standpoint, I think you go for Tommy, man. I mean, he's young. He's got talent. He's obviously got hunger. He's got drive. Daniel Jones just didn't look like he had any of those things. Like he made the playoffs last year. I get that. And that's why he got paid. But what happened this season? He came back and it's almost like the same thing just happened over again. Daniel Jones, he's had chances, he's had opportunities. I think you roll with DeVito. I think you roll the dice on him. It can't get much worse. You know what I mean? What are the odds that Daniel Jones comes back and he balls out? He has like a Pro Bowl season. What are the possibilities of that? Slim, very close to zero, I would say. Could he do it? Sure. It's a random league. Things like that happen. But Tommy DeVito, he's got the hot hand. He's got that hot pizza hand. I think you give it to him. I think you continue to roll with this guy, especially if he plays well into the end of the season. I don't know. I like this guy. I think he's fun. I think he's enjoy. He's a joy to watch. So I hope they stay with Daniel Jones though. I hope he's here in New York.
They got him for a while. We'll see what happens. Jumping to the other team that they played, the Packers. I mean, you were in the wild card spot. You held the keys to the playoffs. I'm not saying they're not in the playoffs, but I mean, this is a game you can't lose. You know what I mean? The New York Giants were not a positive in the record category. They've looked pretty decent over these past couple weeks, but this is not only a winnable game, this is a game that you should win, especially if you're the Packers sitting there in a wild card spot, like I said, right? And this is also a game for Jordan Love to prove, hey, look, prime time. I'm here on Monday night. We're gonna get this wild card spot locked up. We saw Minnesota one. We're gonna get this thing, getting close to locked up, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the biggest thing that I see with the Packers is there's just two completely different teams that show up. Two completely different teams. You have the team where Jordan Love throws for 250, gets 3 touchdowns, and has a QBR rating of plus 118, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or you have the Jordan Love that just doesn't hit throws. The receivers don't look like they're getting open. There's no separation when they're running. The Packers right now, when that defensive line is churning, when you got Rashawn Gary going on that defensive line and you've got Jordan Love hitting on all cylinders, that's a team that's hard to beat. But there's two different Green Bay Packer teams. That division, they got a chance to still win it. But the Packers right now, that was a game they should have had, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just think it's...
Do you think that the Packers are not only in playoff? I mean, it's kind of scary right now if you're a Packers fan, but this team now does not necessarily hold the keys.
Mm-mm. No, they don't. I'm looking at it right now. They're 6-7. If you want a playoff spot, you're probably going to have to rattle off a couple more wins. I'm pretty sure the wild card is at, what are they at right now? They're like 7-6, right? Something like that. It's around that mark, but they're probably around the game behind. Minnesota looks like they're going to take that spot. I don't know. They don't. It's kind of scary in that division, but I think I completely agree with you. The Packers, it's just a different team that shows up every single time. You don't really know what's going to happen. Jordan Love looks good here, and he doesn't look good there. I would say, young quarterback woes, but, he's been in the league for a while. He hasn't had a lot of opportunities to start to play and, give it his all, but I think he's trending in the right direction just overall because, coming off wins against the Lions, the Chiefs, and then this one is just like a kind of like a stinker that makes you like, oh. But I don't know. It's hard for me just to set sail on this boat quite yet. I think they're going to continue to get better. In moments in that game, Jordan Love looked really good, I think. But in other moments, it's just like, oh, why did he throw that? It's like, what is he doing? But I think that'll get better with age. I think that'll get better with coaching. And I need that defense to step it up in Green Bay. You know what I mean? Because they're just not doing anything. If you let the Giants, no offense to the Giants, we just talked about how good they were. If you let them score 24 points, come on. You know what I mean? Like they don't have a lot in terms of receivers. They got Saquon, but I mean, if you stop Saquon, it's hard to say that you won't stop the Giants. So I really think that the Packers defense needs to turn it on. They got to continue to play at a higher level. They need to play at a higher level if they want to at least have a hope of making the playoffs because they're going to – I mean, it's the NFC, man. This has turned into the better conference, I will say, this season based on the injuries that we've seen so far. And I don't think it's slowing down anytime soon. You have Seattle in that wild card spot. You have Like you said, Minnesota in that wild card spot, and they're going to be fighting for it. So it's going to go down to the wire. It really is.
It will indeed. Last team we'll hit on before we hit on the Cowboys. Miami, goes down against Tennessee. Another win or another loss that you cannot afford to have at this point in the season. In the final 3 minutes, they blew a 14-point lead. They lost 28-27. The end of that game was tough because Miami was kind of hobbling. It seemed like with a lot of their players, but
Mm-hmm.
no excuse. You know what I mean, to blow a lead like that in the final 3 minutes. Just poor play calling at the end there, poor clock management skills, and just you know when things could go wrong, everything went wrong, right? So Miami, they should have got out of there with a win, but didn't. And now, when they meet Dallas in a couple weeks, that game probably goes to a must win for them. Perfect segue. Dallas. Okay, so Dallas played Philly last week. If you've been under a rock, and Tanner, go ahead and start us off. All I got to say is Dak Prescott is easily the leader for MVP right now.
I think so. I think he really is. I want to come back to Miami after we hit the Cowboys because I do want to talk about that loss because I think it's pretty important. But the Cowboys, what the heck, man? That was amazing. You know what I mean? Like they put on a show, and I just want to shout out Stephon Gilmore because AJ Brown told him he was too old in that game. Hit him in the face like, you're too old. You can't hang with me anymore. What did he do? He locked him up. He locked him up pretty bad. Now, A.J. Brown, he had a lot of receiving yards. He played well, but I don't think those were very meaningful receiving yards. I think Stephon Gilmore had the bigger impact on the moments that mattered. He had forced a fumble on A.J., and he was basically stuck to his hip all night. And even when it wasn't A.J., Gilmore was right there with him too. So I really, really liked how he played. He stepped up in probably the biggest moment of the season so far, and he looked like that guy who won DPOY, a couple years back, and gosh dang, I mean, going up against A.J. Brown, one of the best receivers in the NFL, and he's locking him up. I mean, he's playing him so tight. And if that's the type of drive, and that's the type of fire that gets into your heart in games that matters, sign me up for Stephon Gilmore all season long, man, because if he's doing this in a regular season game against Philly with that tension that high, I have no doubt that he's going to continue to do it in the postseason. He's going to continue to make plays there. So I love it. Absolutely love it. One thing that I
I mean,
also... Oh, yeah, continue.
to hit on to your point with Stephon Gilmore, I mean, I don't understand why players. I mean, I get it. You know what I mean? You're competitive, but like, you told him he was too old. You told him he was too old. He won Defensive Player of the Year a couple years ago. You know what I mean? Like that's one of those comments where to me it's like, once again, I get it's a sport. There's been a lot worse said in the adult league games that I've played, in the competitive hockey that I've played, growing up. But I mean, come on. You know what I mean? Like, you don't do that. Obviously, you don't go after the family. You know what I mean? When you're talking about when you're talking shit, but you don't tell a guy he's too old. I loved it as a Cowboys fan. You know what I mean? I
Yeah.
absolutely loved it, but you absolutely nailed it. Just he poked the bear, and the bear got the better end of the stick.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it kind of just made the whole defense play better, and you have those players like that. You have players on defense that'll do that to teams. And I mean, this is one of the games where it kind of reminded me of the Cowboys of a couple seasons ago where that defense was just, it wasn't the best statistically, but they would force turnovers. They would just get in their face and they would just knock the ball out, get interceptions, just, make them look mean, just, I don't know. But that was kind of the Dallas defense that I saw last night. They're just getting in their face. They're making plays, getting turnovers, and they showed up in the biggest moments. Every time Philly was about to get a positive play, every time they were about to get some momentum, bam, shut it down. That's what the defense you want to see. That's what the Cowboys are doing right now. I will say, I also want to shout out Dan Quinn. He's been spectacular these past couple seasons, but I think you saw his effects on full display the other night because Jonathan Hankins, he went out of the game. He's a starting DT for Dallas, and big part of that run defense. I mean, probably the biggest part on the defense, because he's just an absolute beast of a man. He goes out of the game, and the Dallas's first round pick, Mozzie Smith, comes in, and there's a noticeable difference just a huge difference. DeAndre Swift is getting like 8-9 yards a carry. They're kind of doing whatever they want. And what does Dan Quinn do? Shifts up the line, makes adjustments, and he stops it real quick. I mean, I saw him move Micah Parsons and DeMarcus Lawrence to the inside playing DT, rushing the passer, and it just changed the way of the game. I mean, he's just making these big adjustments in the moments that count. I think it's the brilliance of Dan Quinn you're seeing. I think that's the reason they won that game, honestly, because Philly started to get going in the second half, and Dallas shut it down, like I said. And I think a big part of it was due to just coaching adjustments. I think he outcoached Philly's offensive coordinator, and I think he put on a show, like I said.
He put on a show for sure, and this was a game that you not only had to win, this was a game that if you wanted to win the division in Dallas, if you wanted to have a shot at the division, you had to win this game, and they did. If Philly wins out, Philly will win the division. Philly plays Seattle. We'll talk about that here in a second. But when you have the Cowboys playing like they did on defense, the way the Cowboys play the ball or the way they play, it's almost like they give up a lot of yards, but then when it comes down to the red zone, they stop it or they force a turnover somehow, right? Bend, don't break is kind of what the defensive scheme is for the Cowboys. They didn't really bend a whole lot other than those, 13 points that Philly put up on them, right? They didn't really bend a whole lot. But when you hold the Philadelphia Eagles to 13 points, that's not only a win, that is a dominant performance against a top 3 offense in the league, right? Especially with all the names that they have. And like you said, Dallas locked them up and played a lot better. Now, the reason that Dallas played so well was primarily because of that pass rush, because Micah got there early. Micah got a sack very early in the game and was in the backfield almost every single play he was there. Dallas's defensive line absolutely dominated Philadelphia's offensive line, dominated them.
And that's
and
high
then when
praise.
you have exactly, because Philly has a damn good offensive line, arguably the best center, one of the best guards with Lane Johnson there as well. They've got a heck of an offensive line, and Jalen Hurts gets the ball out quick. So Dallas's defense absolutely showed up, and you have to show up. That defense has to show up against the Philadelphia team that is that talented, right? When Micah gets there early, I think that puts something in the opposing team's head because Micah's in the backfield already. You know what I mean? He's already back here. That sack that he got was early, and then he did the line coming out of it, and you're like, if you're Philly, you're like, shit, this guy cannot get going. You know what I mean? This guy cannot get going. And just like you said, the run started to work for Philadelphia, and then Dan Quinn shifted the lineup and stopped it immediately, stopped the plays immediately. You know what I mean? This game was a lot of penalties. They need to cut down on the penalties and let them play football. I don't want to see another Des Cottet year when we go into the freaking playoffs. But defensive wise, that's absolutely nailed it with the Cowboys. Offensive wise, Dak put on a show, and Mike McCarthy showed that he can call plays and that he can call very good plays at very good times. And the fact that Dak now does not look like the Dak of old, there's a new level that he's gone to with his offensive scheme and his knowledge this season specifically. The dude never really checked the ball down. 1-2 out, 1-2 out, 1-2 out.
Yeah.
That was not until this season. What? You know what I mean? You see how far and how much Kellen Moore held him back. You see that. And you see what's happening right now. And you see what's happening right now in LA. I don't know if Kellen Moore's going to have a job next season. I don't know if he's going to have a job next season for LA. Yes, somebody else will get him. Worst case scenario, he moves to a position coach after this. But he went from a potential head coach candidate to just, no, nothing. You know what I mean? Nothing.
Yeah,
So
don't touch him.
Not a great hire there on Dallas's part. But the offense, Dak hit on every cylinder. The deep throws that he is making right now and hitting with pinpoint accuracy, I'm like, I haven't seen a lot of this, but I'm here for it.
Hmm.
I'm absolutely here for it. And CeeDee Lamb, in my opinion, is the second best wide receiver in the league this year, specifically based off of his play. In my opinion, Tony Pollard has not held up to that running back one, but CD has caught all of that slack that Tony Pollard hasn't necessarily got there. Now, is it Tony Pollard's fault? When you look at the play calling, it's kind of hard at points, but hey, we'll see what happens to Tony Pollard in the offseason. CD Lamb right now, the ball's going to him,
Yeah.
and they're still completing passes. That is Des Bryant. That is Michael Irvin. That is Drew Pearson. That's exactly what it is. He is getting the ball when he's not open. When he's open, he's making plays. That guy's open 30 yards down the field because not only did he make the defender fall, but he made another defender fall on the way too. And then he goes up and gets the contested catch. Right?
Yeah.
This offense is hitting on all cylinders. What did you think about the offense?
I think it's a really good point. Obviously CeeDee Lamb is really dominant, but 100%, I agree. I mean, I was thinking about this the other day. I don't think AJ Brown. It's a close comparison, but I think CD takes the cake over him just based on recent performance and what he's been doing all season long. This is his show. It's not like he has Devontae Smith, a former Heisman Trophy winner, on the other side. He has Brandon Cooks, which Brandon Cooks is good, but he hasn't had like an amazing season. I don't even know if he's going to hit 1,000 yards. You know what I mean? So it's like CeeDee Lamb is putting up these numbers, and it's like you said, we know the ball is going to him. We know exactly where it's going. It could be third down. Dak's looking for CD every single time. I promise you he is. And it doesn't matter. I mean, CD's route running is just elite. He's an elite receiver, and he's one of the best in the NFL at it. He's going to make you fall, and he's going to get open. He's going to get a couple steps ahead of you. It doesn't really matter who you are. It got to the point where they started not shifting. They started shifting corners around because big play Slay couldn't handle him. I mean, that it's just it. CeeDee Lamb is being a dominant force in the NFL right now, and he's one of the best at it. And I want to hit on Tony Pollard a little bit because while I don't think he had the craziest game, I think he had a really, really good game. I think you saw a lot, like you were saying with checkdowns, getting the ball to Tony Pollard within like 2 seconds. He hits that back foot and the ball's out. And Tony Pollard has space. He's a machine. He's super fast. We know that. And so why don't we just give him the ball in the flat? He's going to get at least 3 or 4 yards out of every time, and that's a supplement for the running game too. So they were running the ball really effectively. They were dominating on the offensive line and passing the ball too in the short yardage situations and short yardage plays. They were dominating. I think we talked about it earlier in the season. You want to get the ball out to CeeDee Lamb quickly, but I talked about it a little bit too. We wanted to get the ball out to Tony Pollard quickly, and they're doing that now. They're finding success. They're getting their playmakers involved, and that's what I think is the key to Dak's success. He's making these big-time throws, absolutely, but he's got CeeDee Lamb sitting there running just outstanding routes. He's got Tony Pollard there and just sitting, waiting for the ball, using his explosiveness to get a couple yards, and they're going positive every play. They're not going backwards, I say, with offense and stuff like that. They look good. They look sound. They're continuing drives. And not to mention Jake Ferguson, like this guy is at the beginning of the season, we were like Dalton Schultz. I don't know. He had a lot of production in Dallas. Let's see what Jake can do. And Jake has stepped into that role very nicely. He has looked really good. He has probably some of the best high hands I've seen at the tight end position. I mean, that guy can catch the ball in
he's got vice grips,
contested catches, absolutely, and they trust him to do that too. You see, like the routes he runs in the end zone. Oh my goodness, that's just like defenders are like on him constantly. He's making these plays, but Dallas looks good. They got a weapon at every position, and offensive line starting to play really, really well. I don't know, man. Dak has everything he needs to succeed, and it's like he was saying last night. The commentators were talking about it, or 2 nights ago, and he's like, yeah, I don't. It's never really been this easy, man. It's like a whole new part of my brain unlocks, and that's Dak talking. It's like quarterback is completely different now that he's learned this offense under Mike McCarthy, and he's showing it, man. I mean, he looks really good, and the throws he's making are just pinpoint accurate. I'll say that fumble or whatever last 2 nights ago, it wasn't great, but that was the only bad part of the game, and it didn't. We haven't even talked about it, and it's been like 10 minutes talking about the Cowboys so far. So like it didn't really matter. Whatever, you know what I mean? Dak fumbled it, but it didn't change the outcome of the game. Offense got right back up, went down and scored points. Brendan Aubrey is a legend and a half. Dude's got the leg of steel and just confidence of steel. So it's hard to beat this Cowboys team. They look superior in all positions. I would say the only better team right now in the NFC or in the NFL is the Niners.
And a huge test this coming up week against the Bills. And
Mm-hmm.
agree with what you said. Dak Prescott's playing at a high level. When Dak Prescott's playing at a high level, it's going to be hard to beat him. And when you unlock a new part of your brain and you're a veteran and he's about to sign his third contract,
Yeah.
that's scary. You know what I mean? They say when quarterbacks get older, they start to get better. You see it with Aaron Rodgers. You see him make the checkdowns at the line, and then all of a sudden you see a massive hole that opened because Aaron Rodgers saw that. Right? You see the same thing with Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott's now coming in there and audibling at the line. He always has, but he's never done it as much as he has this season, and he is performing at a high level once again. And CD Lamb back up the truck. Dak Prescott, they're going to back up the truck. But like you said, you've got the Niners, who are the only other team in the NFL right now that are better, in my opinion, than the Cowboys. And if the Ravens and the Cowboys played right now, we'll see what happens. But that's another team that could potentially be there. Now jumping to no, you wanted to hit on Miami real quick.
Yeah,
What were you going to say about Miami?
I want to go back to Miami because I think it's really interesting because Miami. I don't think Miami played a good game. In fact, I think they should have lost that game. Just stand out. Just if you look at all the plays, you look at how they played throughout the game, they didn't look good at all. Even when Tyreek was in there, when he went out, it was even worse. I don't really know what happened, but I just give credit to that Titans defense because I think they deserved to win that game. And I think when Tyreek did go out, you saw the Tyreek effect. It was, it sucks, but it was almost like watching Tua back when he didn't have him. He's just throwing these balls, and it's just like he's uncomfortable. I don't know. I think that's the Tyreek effect. I hope he's not out for a long time because I don't know if this offense can stay afloat without him out. Because, it's the Tennessee Titans. They just got rid of their best safety, very recently to go over to Philadelphia. Like they're continuously losing pieces, and they didn't look good at all. I would say that pick six from the defense kept them in the game for a long time, and that when they started to finally get it, it was because of turnovers from the defense, the Miami defense. So defense kept them in the game, but offense kind of screwed them at the end, kind of shot themselves in the foot. And, defense let up 2 touchdowns at the end. They finally get through, and Miami's offense can't do anything. If you're Tua, if you're a franchise quarterback, it's your job to go down there and win the game, and he didn't do it. And in my opinion, he had enough time. In my opinion, he had a lot of opportunities, but it didn't go down like that. I just think it's really interesting to see, especially, again, with the playoffs coming up so soon and that Dallas matchup coming up even sooner.
We'll see what happens with those two. But jumping to the matchup preview and pick section, Tanner and I pick the games every week. NFL games. We pick some college games. We pick the championship week. We also pick the bowl week. So this is for the betters of the episode. So Tanner, go ahead and take it away.
Yeah. This week I went 3-2. That was pretty nice. Pretty nice. And this week you went 2-3. So right now I'm at 44-31, and you are at 44-31. So we are neck and neck down to the end of the season. I don't know how long we're going to keep this going, how many sports we're going to include in it, but let's just keep it rolling,
Keep it rolling, exactly. And we got a ton of games to pick this week because we got the Saturday slate. We got Thursday, we got Saturday, we got Sunday, and we got Monday. So we got a lot of games this week to pick. But starting off, Chargers versus the Raiders, probably on Thursday night. Thursday night this year has been brutal. Add another brutal game to it. Sorry, Chargers. Sorry, Raiders fans. I think, should the Raiders win this game? You know what I mean? Should the Raiders win this game with Justin Herbert going down, or is this another performance where all it takes is 3 points to win? You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like what Raiders team? I mean, I haven't necessarily seen a good team this year. You know what I mean? I haven't really necessarily seen a good team, but I I don't know who's going to win this game. You know what I mean? Because the Chargers have a pretty solid defense. Well, decent defense
Mm-hmm.
in terms of numbers this year,
It's up and down.
but the Raiders, if Max Crosby gets going, it's over.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Max Crosby can literally win games at the defensive end position. So who do you got in this game? Because whoever you got, I'm going separate
I
or opposite.
I'm gonna go with the Raiders. It's
Okay.
weird. It's a strange game. It's a strange week, and the NFL is weird now with all these backup quarterbacks. But I'm gonna go with the Raiders. I can't put stock into that Chargers team right now because even with Justin Herbert in, they weren't good. Without him in there, I can't imagine they're gonna be much better. If anything, they're gonna be even worse. So, give me the Raiders. I think it's gonna be another low scoring game, but I think they're gonna win. I think they're gonna take it out. If the Raiders play this right, I think they can win this game. Get Devontae Adams involved early. Get him involved in the short passing game, run after catch, all that kind of stuff. Josh Jacobs, same situation. I think you can. I think you can pound against this defense. I think you can get some success against the Chargers, but I don't think the Chargers can get success against the Raiders defense. Like you said, Crosby is a beast. Khalil Mack on the other side, he's having a good season, but Crosby is just a beast. He can take over games. He has that ability, and I think this is going to be a night where he's going to take over. And so, give me the Raiders, man. I got a feeling on them.
I'll take the Chargers since you got the Raiders. If the Raiders continue to win this season, we'll see what happens with Devontae Adams. But the Devontae Adams saga has not yet begun. It ramped up right before the trade deadline happened. But in the offseason, we could see what happens because I mean, like you said, they got to get him going early, and if they don't, I think it's potentially you could lose Devontae at this point because
I
yes, he's had production when he's been at Oakland, but he is just one of the only players on that team on the offensive side of the ball that's getting as much production as he has. Josh Jacobs as well. Josh Jacobs has that contract already, though. You know what I mean? Well, no, Josh Jacobs is a short term contract, isn't he?
I'm not
Isn't he
sure.
only a 1 year?
I'm not sure.
I'm pretty sure he's only a 1 year.
But
I'll look it up.
if
I'll
if
look
I'm
it up.
if
But
I'm
anyway,
Devontae though,
go ahead.
I'm getting out of there. I'm getting out of Dodge. I'm going to another team. I'm requesting a trade in the offseason because he's not happy. The quarterback play is terrible there. They didn't try at all to get a good quarterback in the offseason, and now they're suffering because of it. Jimmy G and what is his name, like O'Connell, but they're just not. It's just not working. Devontae Adams is just not happy. Uh, he's one of the best receivers in the NFL when he has someone like Aaron Rodgers throwing to him. So if I'm him, man, hey, maybe a reunion with Aaron. Like I just get some team to trade for you. It's going to be one of those lower round or those lower trades. You know how you see with Philly doing it all the time. They trade like fifths for like superstars. I think that's going to happen. I would do that if I was Devontae. Just get out of Vegas. It's not working, man.
It's not working at all. And also I just look it up. Jacobs is only on a 1 year contract. I do remember
Okay,
he
there you
signed that
go.
this offseason because he was holding out. So the Raiders could potentially implode, especially if they don't start, winning a whole lot of games. And yeah, like you said, the quarterback plays just hasn't been there. And if you don't have a good quarterback in the NFL, you're not going to win football games. Saturday morning game, that was a Thursday night game. So Tanner's got Raiders, I've got Chargers. Saturday morning, Vikings Vikings versus Bengals. Keep this one short and sweet. Jake Browning has been playing at an incredibly high level with the absence of Burrow, and Nick Mullins was just named the new Vikings starter for quarterback over Dobbs this week. So I'm gonna go with Jake Browning, who's been playing at a high level and has his pretty much his entire core still there in terms of wide receivers, and Justin Jefferson with his status. So I'm gonna go Bengals over Vikings this week.
Yeah, give me the Bengals. I think Joe Mixon is playing really well now too. He's starting to come on. They're starting to run the ball a lot. In the absence of Joe Burrow, they want to get that run game going, and consequentially, Jake Browning, he's having a really, really good time. I was talking about it last episode. He's playing at a really high level. His receivers are really, really good. It's kind of like he doesn't really need to do much. You just got to get the ball in the right hands at the right time, and just let the rest work out for you. And success will happen at will. I think that defense too is kind of undervalued with the Bengals defense. I think they play up to whoever they play. They play down to a little bit as well, but it's going to be hard for the Vikings to win this one. I'll be honest. It's hard to win in the NFL without a quarterback, and Nick Mullins, he's okay, but I don't know. It's going to be tough to win, especially with the Bengals playing almost the same, as when Joe Burrow was in there. So I give me the Bengals.
Saturday afternoon, we got the Colts versus the Steelers. Steelers got smacked by the Pats. That was the game, one of the games I got wrong last week. Nobody saw that one coming. With the low performance, of Kenny Pickett week over week. I mean, will this team ever be favorites this season? Like, I don't think I can really pick this team to win, just because in my the Patriots, that was a game that you should have won.
Mm-hmm.
If you're the Steelers, in my opinion, you should have won that game. Your record's still not too bad, right? You could potentially make a playoff push there if you start to win a ton of games and string a couple together, but just didn't and got destroyed. I'm gonna go Colts, but do you think the Steelers will be favorites this season again to win a game?
I mean, depending on who they play, of course, but I'm actually going to go Steelers here. I think that it's tough for me to pick Minshew going against the Pittsburgh defense. I don't think the Pittsburgh defense is that bad. I think they just kind of had an off week against the Patriots, and they kind of got schooled by Belichick just overall because they two big franchises, two big coaches, and Mike Tomlin and Bill Belichick, and it's just kind of one of those things. But give me the Steelers. I think that defense gets a hold of Minshew a lot better than they did last week with the Patriots, and they just got to score enough. I think is the play of the day. I don't really know who's starting at quarterback. I think it's still going to be Trubisky, but he's just, I don't even know if you put Mason Rudolph in there, if it doesn't get better, probably not. But I think they're going to score enough to win. I don't know, man. I don't know. It's going to be one of those low-scoring games. The NFL is really hard to predict this season with all these quarterbacks, man.
I know all these quarterbacks going down. It's tough to predict games. You have no idea what's going to happen, but
Mm-mm.
hey, we're trying. We are way positive so far, so we're doing good.
That's true.
Saturday night game, we got the Broncos versus the Lions. That is
It's a good game.
huge playoff implications for both those teams, NFC wise. Who do you got in this one? Lions need a win. Broncos also need a win, but the Lions have dropped the last couple, and the Broncos are looking hot.
Give me the Lions, and I'm going to stand firm on this mountain. It's probably more of a hill at this point, but I'm going to stand firm here. And I think the Lions got what it takes. I just think they need to rediscover themselves because they've played really good teams this season. They've looked good against them in other situations. They've looked bad against bad teams. It's just inconsistency. If they start going, especially against this Broncos team, who is one of the worst in the NFL against rushing attempts. We talked about that the other podcast. I think it's going to be over very quickly for the Broncos. The Broncos are good, don't get me wrong, but they kind of start like slow and kind of get into some games slowly. They start ramping up towards the end. Russ starts cooking a little bit, and they just make a lot of plays. But I think the Lions are going to take this one, and I think they're going to show that they're still a powerhouse in the NFC and the NFL in general. And Amon-Ra St. Brown hopefully won't have many drops this game because that would kind of stink.
I got the Lions as well in that one. Sunday morning game, we got the Bucks and the Packers. That's also a huge game, especially with those divisions. Both those teams are sitting at 6-7. I gotta go Bucks here. I gotta go Bucks over Packers because I think the Bucks defense is legit. I think the Bucks defense is pretty solid, and they do very well against not rookie quarterbacks, but he's kind of sort of a rookie quarterback at this point in terms of how many games he's played in the NFL. And I don't think he's going to have a great performance against his team. We'll see. But I got the Bucks, and I got Baker Mayfield.
Yeah, I agree. I'm going Bucks as well. I think it's just one of those things. Baker has a lot of talent on that offense. I've been harping it since the beginning of the season, man. I think he's gonna go all the way. No, but I think he's gonna win this game. I think he's gonna excel. I will say against this Packers defense, who has shown that they just lost to the Giants. They are not always up to the best. They played well against the Chiefs, but at the same time, they played pretty badly against the Giants. So what does that say? It's just inconsistent. I think he's gonna play well, and I think it's gonna be hard to stop these receivers, especially Mike Evans, who is continuously doing it week in and week out, every season. It doesn't really matter. So I'm gonna bet on the guy that has been doing it for however many seasons and has a record for it. So give me the Bucks.
10. He's
10.
got 10. I want to say
10.
Jerry Rice has 11 consecutive, so he's one season away from tying Jerry.
That's
Uh,
disgusting.
and I think 18 overall is what Jerry had, which is kind of insane if you think about it. Sunday afternoon game, we got the Cowboys and the Bills. The Bills coming off a win against Kansas City. Huge controversy at the end of that game with the call.
Mm-hmm.
Dallas coming off a dominant win against Philly. Two teams that need to continue to win games. Buffalo needs to continue to win a little bit more. Dallas needs to continue to win if they want to have a shot at the NFC East. I'm going Cowboys over the Bills. It's kind of hard for us to pick against the Cowboys if you've listened to the podcast before, but I'm going to go Cowboys here. I think that when you come off a dominant performance like that against the Eagles, I'm not going to pick against a team that beats down the Philadelphia Eagles like that.
It's really tough to pick against Dallas here. I'm not going to. Obviously, the Cowboys, I'm gonna take them, but it's Buffalo has looked weak at various points during this season. Obviously they have that chip on their shoulder. They want to make this playoff push, but it looks like a team that is very beatable. That's at moments the Bills have looked very, very beatable, and Josh Allen tends to make mistakes. When it counts, especially when it comes down to the red zone and stuff like that. So you've seen that a lot this season. He's a gunslinger. He's gonna continue to sling it. I have full faith in Dan Quinn to prepare for this game. They haven't played Dallas in a while. I'll say that. The last time, I don't remember the last time the Bills played them, but I think the Bills got the dub last time, and I think Dallas is gonna get the dub this time. It's just I don't know. I got a feeling I think Dallas is gonna continue their winning ways, and it Buffalo looks weak in a lot of different areas. So give me Dallas. Give me Dak Prescott. Give me all them boys.
Well, hopefully Dallas, comes out this week with the win. This is a huge test, and also a huge test for the Bills. If the Bills win this week against the Cowboys, they go from being potentially playoff teams to very close to being a playoff team and a legit team because, like we said, Cowboys are the number 2 team in the NFC. Sunday night, we got the Ravens and the Jags. Trevor Lawrence was noticeably hobbling, that last game. I'm going to go Ravens. They've been dominant this year, only 3 losses the whole season. Easily give me Lamar Jackson over a hobbled Trevor Lawrence for sure.
Yeah, it's pretty much that. Even if Trevor Lawrence had 2 legs for this game, I think the Ravens still win. Their defense is unreal right now, and like you said earlier, Lamar's playing at a pretty high level, and it's hard to stop him, especially with their run game being as dominant as it has been. So, give me the Ravens in prime time.
Monday night, last game we're picking Eagles versus the Seahawks. Arguably, in my opinion, the hardest remaining game on their schedule. They have a very easy schedule to end out the season. So if Philly loses, this could potentially be the game they do it. But obviously Seattle's going to need to have Geno to do that. And not only does Jalen Hurts not only lose like 2 times in his career, which just happened, I don't know if he's ever lost 3 times in a row. So I'm not going to bet against the Philadelphia Eagles here. I think this one's pretty easy pick across the board, in my opinion. I take the Eagles on a bounce back win against Seattle.
Yeah, see, I would, but I'm a believer, in the Seattle Seahawks. No, it's tough. I think if Geno plays,
Picking against the Eagles?
I'm gonna pick the Seahawks. I've been
Okay,
picking for
we
the
see
Eagles
you.
all season. All right, I genuinely thought that they were gonna beat the Niners, but they didn't. So this is kind of like the other side of it, right? I think if Geno plays at the level he's been playing with DK Metcalf, it's gonna be hard to stop. They just saw CeeDee Lamb CeeDee Lamb just torched him, all day, all night, in 2 games. I think if DK and Tyler Lockett and Geno has at least some pass protection, I think they get it done, man. I really do, because Philly's pass defense is not playing at an all-time high right now. They're playing pretty poorly, and they're giving up some of the most passing touchdowns in the NFL. If you can get DK going, Tyler Lockett going, even Kenneth Walker out of the backfield going, and if Geno plays, I think this is a winnable game. I think Seattle can absolutely stun them, and Philly drops their third loss in a row, but it's contingent on Geno playing. It 100% all lies on whether or not he plays and if he's good to go. If Drew Lock is in there, yeah, no, absolutely not. Philly's defense is going to have a day with him, but if Geno plays, give him to me. And the fact that it's a Monday game gives me a little bit of hope that Geno will play. So give me the Seahawks. Give me a little Seattle, 12th man.
And they're don't you ever say that.
Hey,
You should know better than that.
hey, that's what they are. That's what they are.
So now that's all the football we have for this episode. This is the last note section of it. I had to save it, for this one because I, been crying all week long about it. Tanner and I had fortunate enough to see him multiple times this season, but if you haven't heard, Shohei Ohtani went from the Angels, which is my squad, to the Dodgers. 10 years, $700 million. That's absolutely insane. He's making, I saw this breakdown of his contract. This is just absolutely unbelievable. 70 million per year, but there's been, since it's come out, he's not making 70 million per year. He's making 2 for the first years, and then he's jumping to 68 after that. Per month, it's like 5.8. Per week, it's like 1.3 million. Per day, it's like almost 200,000. Per hour, it's like almost $8,000. Per minute, he's almost making $130. And then per second, he's making $2. So yeah, and per game he's making over 400 grand. And there's a lot of games in baseball, in case you haven't noticed, in the regular season. So, knew the contract was going to be big, didn't know it was going to be that big. Like I said, Tanner and I got to see him a couple times, but you knew he wasn't going to stay in Anaheim. But a lot of people thought it was going to be Toronto, and he just went pretty much across the street to the Dodgers, and they $700 million.
It's
You know what I mean?
crazy.
That beats like the previous highest sports contract by like 350 million.
Yeah,
That's insane.
I think it's the biggest sports contract
Oh, it
in
is.
North America, period. All time,
Yeah.
crazy, just
Yeah.
stupid numbers. I mean, when you got a guy like that though, and baseball is the type of sport where you just kind of shell out money. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the Dodgers are, a pretty big franchise, so it makes sense when you look at it from the outside, from retrospect. But it kind of stinks. I wanted to, Rangers won the World Series, but you never know.
I would have. You're telling me I would have gone to Texas if I was him? See how much money? Almost like 60% of that contract is gone in taxes. So I don't know. That's a lot of money. That's $700 million being gone. Just sitting there left on the table. So I would have. I'd have probably gone to Texas, and hey, then could have gone back to Texas and watched a game with you and Pop. But that's, hey, at least we got to say we watched him pitch and watched him crank some home runs, which is absolutely insane. The dude is one of the best baseball players I've ever seen. If he continues at the rate, he's going to go down as one of the greatest of all time. He's not pitching for at least 2 years. So the Dodgers essentially, he's just a hitter for these next couple of years, but then he's going to start pitching again. And my goodness, here we go. That's the last baseball talk of the episode. We got it. I have to. Sorry, this one's going to hurt a little bit, Tanner.
I don't like this.
My team could potentially get knocked out tomorrow. But Tanner's team, Manchester United, have just been getting kicked in the face all season, just all season, and it continues with a 1-0 loss to Bayern Munich. What's going on there, man? What's going on there in old Manchester?
It's just not working.
United.
It's not working very well at all. They're just,
No.
I don't know. They just don't believe. I just don't think the locker room is there. I don't think that there's any culture there anymore. It's just no one really wants to play for the team right now. If you come in, it's like, oh God, you know what I mean? Like they're dropping players left and right. Ten Hag, he's making decisions based on the starting lineup that, in my opinion, are probably not the greatest. It's just it. I don't like the direction the club is going in, and you're seeing it on the pitch. It's just not working. But Bayern Munich's a good team. They're a really good team, and they got better, over this past offseason. So it's just like, ugh, this sucks. And I saw that draw in the Champions League, and I'm like, God dang it. I was hoping for number two, but they lose to teams they shouldn't, and that was kind of what killed them in the Champions League. I think even if you do whatever against Bayern, if you win the other games, you can secure that number two, but they didn't, and now they're out of the Champions League for what feels like the zillionth time in however many years, but it's not great right now. Let's just put it that way. I mean, your squad though. I mean, I think they got a chance against Dortmund. I think Dortmund's a beatable team.
If PSG takes on versus Dortmund tomorrow, another team from Bundesliga, and essentially to see who moves on. You know what I mean in that group. So I'm going to be definitely tuned into that one. PSG got rid of Neymar, Messi, Sergio Ramos in the offseason. They got rid of all the veterans, all the big names. They also got rid of Mario Vitali from Italy. They got rid of everybody practically on their team, and they are literally taking this young approach with Mbappe at the helm and hoping like hell he stays, which he's probably not going to because he's linked to Real Madrid. But if PSG win against Dortmund and then make a potential run in the Champions League, I'm not saying they're going to because they have a lot of young players, like I said, that need to hit. But if Mbappe's on your team, you have a chance to win. The kid quite literally has already won a World Cup and did it when he wasn't even 20 years old. So PSG has a great chance to win against Dortmund tomorrow. We'll see what happens, but yes, this could potentially be both of our clubs going out of the Champions League practically before, not even getting out of the group stage of the Champions League.
Sucks, man.
And we can't talk about my hockey team. They're the worst in the league with the Sharks. Still love them. Still going to be a fan. And then, my baseball team, we just talked about it. We lost Otani, which was half our team.
Hey,
so
Stars are doing pretty well, though.
Yeah, but I'm a Sharks fan.
Yeah, but I'm a Stars fan.
Well, I know, but still, I'm saying
and a Rangers
fan.
My teams are fine. Each of your teams that are the problem, except
for your soccer team.
Yeah, but
except for the soccer team.
Let's
yes,
say my Texas teams. My Texas teams are doing fine.
Yes.
Your California
I picked
teams.
the wrong teams.
Your California
when
teams
I was a child,
are
clearly
rough.
They're the worst. is the worst part. But hey, I got not really three bad teams right now. I can't say it. I can say technically you have two, because no offense, but the Spurs are like 0 and whatever. You know what I mean?
Look,
so
they're only like 0-16 in their last 16 games or something like that. It's pretty bad.
Detroit's 0-20. Is that who you're comparing it to?
Look, okay, we're just going for
That's
that.
bad.
We're looking for somebody else, because Wemby is over the past like 5 games. I saw he was like averaging like a double with like 20 rebounds and 20 points, and I was like, dude, what? I've been watching those games too. It's not that they're like the Spurs are playing bad. They're just not very good at basketball. That their level is just not to the very high. Like some games they're on. I think Sohan, he's had good games. He's had good games here and there. Wemby, he's had bad moments, good moments here and there. It's just inconsistency. They need to make the shots when they're open. They need to stop taking stupid jumpers. They need to start getting defensively better. But it's hard to start somewhere, you know what I mean, with the Spurs, because they're just so bad everywhere. I think Wemby's the bright spot. I think Vassell, he's been playing really well. I think their other big men are decent. They need a guard. They need like a guard. I mean, just somebody that just gonna blow the top off of a defense, and you got Wemby down there too. 100% they need a shooter. I think that's what they wanted Keldon Johnson to be, but he just really hasn't panned out, and it's just not working that well. He was supposed to be the shooter, the next best shooter, but he just isn't that consistent. So I don't know, man. Spurs are another story. I'm just waiting for that next top 5 draft pick, because there's no way to get number 1 again. That would be crazy. But at least we're not the Pistons.
Yeah, there you go. That's one positive note. And last note of the pod is the Lakers won the in-season tournament, and I'm a Lakers guy, so I had to call that out. That's first ever to do it. LeBron said making history is technically not wrong. I hope that we go really deep in the playoffs, because if we don't, then I don't really know. Yeah, you know what I mean. But
Yeah,
hey, it's life changing money. So
I do too,
all I got
man.
to say is I'm glad we got the dub, and the Lakers look pretty solid when AD and Braun somehow. He arguably looks better than last season, and I
Mm-hmm.
didn't think that that was going to happen. Now it's still early on in the season. You know what I mean? You'll kind of see what happens toward the end of the season, and Anthony Davis, you just got to hope he stays healthy. Austin Reeves is playing pretty solid ball, so not a bad squad, and the Lakers are playing so well defensively, it's unbelievable. So got to keep this run up and make a playoff push, because there are some pretty good teams on top of the West and the East this year.
No,
Some
yeah,
dominant teams.
I completely agree. I think the Lakers showed up and they played really well in that tournament. I mean, they played a good Pacers team. The Pacers are not a bad team at all. I mean, Halliburton is probably one of the best shooters in the NBA right now. I mean, he's putting up a lot of numbers, and the Lakers played really well against him. I mean, it's kind of like in the playoffs. We saw last year where, you know, their support skill players are starting to make a difference. Austin Reeves, he's coming on, and he's just become a staple in that offense, and he's just making big plays when it matters. And AD, there's not a lot to say about him because he's just dominant. He just does whatever he wants, and he's kind of showing it. He's still that guy. He can still do it day in and day out. And LeBron doesn't look like he's missed a step. You know what I mean? I don't know if I can name like a harder worker than LeBron James in sports right now, because that dude is just giving it his all in the last parts of his NBA career, and he's just doesn't look like he's slowing down, man. It's really impressive, and he's still playing at the highest level, and he's making people look silly. He's looking really good. The Lakers look honestly really really good, and I mean it was fun for the Lakers to win the first ever in season tournament. I enjoyed it. I watched a bunch of those games. I think it was a lot of fun. Um, and like you said, life changing money for these guys. I mean, I think their salary doubles just based on that game alone. Like if they win it.
For
So
some of them, yeah, for those bench guys, for sure. And I think what I heard, if I'm not mistaken, that this also goes to like the staff,
yeah, I think everyone on the
which
team.
is which is sick. You know what I mean? Because
It's
that
so
like
cool.
500K per person, that's not bad.
I
That's,
loved
that's
it.
pretty that's not bad.
It just it makes people watch. You know what I mean? Like I heard that they were doing it. And I'm like, oh, kind of sounds weird. Kind of it's not important really, but it reminds me of those early season tournaments you see in the NCAA, like those like Hawaii tournaments that A&M always goes to and stuff like that. That are like they don't mean anything, but they're fun. They get you ready to play for the season, and they get you some experience in a tournament style like bracket, which is huge for playoffs. So I like it a lot. I hope the in season tournament continues, and I hope it stays, and I hope it gets bigger because it's really cool. I've enjoyed it.
It's definitely fun. I love the courts. I love the jerseys. I
It's so
love it
cool.
all. And first ever champion here, Lake Show. Let's keep it going in the playoffs. But I think that's everything we got this week sports wise, folks. So we'll talk to you next week.
And we will. Hey, maybe in the off season we become a basketball podcast. How about that, chat?
Oh hey, I'll keep up the football prospects, and you take away the basketball. I am totally fine with that.
Hey, let's go. All right. Well, we will talk to you later.
See ya.
Peace.